Welcome back to another episode of the Packs What She Said podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Maggie Loney, joined as always by Perry Goldstein. Week 3, the home opener at Lambeau Field that we will both be in attendance for. Cannot wait. The 2-0 Saints coming to town to take on the 1-1 Packers. Perry, 1, welcome to Wisconsin. It's going to be great to see you. 2, let's talk about this game.
I can't wait. This is going to be a really interesting one. I think that the Saints and Packers have some matchups that are very contradictory to one another in some of the statistics. So it's going to be who can just play better ball. We'll get into it. That comment will make sense. That was very vague.
Well, it's funny because, we typically try to structure the show like, let's do Packers offense and Packers defense. But when I look at certain matchups, there are very specific people I want to talk about, and they just happen to be on the Packers defensive side of the ball. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's get started with the offense, because obviously we know that Jordan Love is playing pretty fantastically in his first 2 games. This is his first start at Lambeau, which is really exciting. Has come in spot duty, but his starts have always been on the road. So really excited to be there for that and hear him come out of the tunnel, hear the reaction from the crowd. Going to be a really special moment for him. I think he still is currently leading the league in passer rating through 2 weeks, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. I want to talk about this offense as a whole, though. They're number 1 right now in red zone percentage in the league. 6 trips, 5 touchdowns for an 83.3% completion percentage. So,
yes, I think that's good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds good.
That's pretty good. I will say, though, they are going up against a defense that is number 1 in the red zone. So the Saints have given up, I think, only 1. Am I correct in saying that? 1 touchdown. I know that they have allowed 20 or fewer points in the last 10 consecutive games, which is the longest active streak of any defense in the NFL. So they are stingy, and they definitely clamp down when they get down into the red zone.
Yeah, so they're 3rd in third down conversions, which we know the Packers struggled with against the Falcons. And then, they're 2nd in red zone percentage. They have allowed 1 touchdown on 6 trips this season. So 16%. Yep. That's yikes.
So when I said earlier, there's a lot of contradictory statistics here that are going to clash in this game. This is what I mean. This is not the only one, but this is what I mean. It's going to be who can come out on top. And I think this is going to be a game where if the Packers win and can put up points against the Saints defense, we're not only going to be talking a little bit differently about Jordan Love and his ability to win in difficult situations, but we're going to be talking about Matt LaFleur and his ability to scheme up against a very good defense.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Matt LaFleur, because I thought this was kind of like a fun stat since we're going into our first home game. He is actually, he has a 27-6 record at home in the regular season, which is the top mark since 2019 when he became a head coach. So Chiefs are not far behind with 25-8. But yeah, so LaFleur has his team with the best home record in the league. Really excited to see them come back to town finally. It feels like they're home. They always open on the road lately. I don't know. I think it was 4 or 5 of the last seasons, but
2 road games to start the season is actually pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's going to be a lot of juice coming home to play at Lambeau.
I think so too. And we we didn't directly talk about it, but Matt LaFleur talked about it earlier this week, and a lot of the players had said wasn't good enough. Last week was not good enough, and they know they're going to be in front of their fans, their crowd. I think they know that they need to bring it. I was just going to say a little bit of optimism this week is that Christian Watson is a limited participant, so we might get to see him make his debut.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to say, actually. Positive news out of camp is that Christian Watson's back practicing. I think is only in a limited capacity, but we love to see that. Unfortunately, Aaron Jones is not, so we will keep an eye on that, but we're going to keep that on the DL because we're trying to be positive. Obviously, a ton of news surrounding David Bakhtiari happened on Wednesday, September 20th, the day before we were recording this. I don't particularly feel the need to rehash it all. I think it's very clear what's happening is that David's knee is flaring up and bothering him, and it does not feel like he will go, which is unfortunate because for a lot of obvious reasons, but because David Bakhtiari is one of the best pass blockers in the league. And this Saints defense is filled with, albeit some older gentlemen, but some very, very, very good defensive linemen and pass rushers, namely a Cam Jordan. And we saw what a guy, such a good guy. Love that guy. Brian Breesy, who they just drafted, and Demario Davis, who really took it to poor Bryce Young on Monday night against the Panthers. So it's going to be a test. I think they will, I said this in our Falcons episode, but workshop their best 5 this week. If that's Rasheed Walker, if that's Yash Nyman, if that's moving Zach Tom, which I'm on the side of, I don't think that they are going to do that. I think keep people in their positions that they play best is probably the best option at the moment. But yeah, just a little bit having Jordan Love's kind of blind side being weak is not what you want against the Saints pass rush.
Yeah, I could see Matt LaFleur just doing a lot of, extra linemen. I think maybe Yash gets the start and Rashid kind of comes in at that 6th guy, but there's no comfort, right, with this edge class. I mean, you mentioned there's Cam Jordan, but then Carl Granderson, who plays the other edge spot, leads the team in sacks. He's got 2.5 sacks. So it's almost like, the focus is on Cam and then Granderson gets to eat. And that's the concern too, right? Is if the Packers devote their energy to stopping Cam Jordan, they have plenty of talent elsewhere to get after the quarterback. And Jordan Love has been, had a relatively clean pocket, hasn't needed to do a ton with his legs. So this will be a real test for him too, to, protect the football and kind of evade some pressure because there's going to be a lot of it on Sunday.
100%. Do you think, I was wondering this I was watching the QB school with JT O'Sullivan this morning, catching up on his Jordan Love overview, if you will. And if you don't watch it, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And I'm wondering if they maybe do a few like designed QB runs. I don't know what that looks like necessarily. We've never seen it in Green Bay, so like it's not something that I have a particular like expertise on. But given what Jordan Love can do with his legs, and if Aaron Jones can't go, and you need to get the run game going, not that you want to put your quarterback in that position if you don't have to, but Jordan has legs and he's willing to take off if a play breaks down and he has an open lane. So I don't know if maybe they scheme something up for him this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be part of it. Is Aaron Jones is such a focal point. Even if Christian Watson was playing, like Aaron Jones is still the guy on offense. And if he can't go, we saw them do it with Jaden Reed, getting creative in the backfield. Luke Musgrave has the wheels to make some of that stuff happen. But I could definitely see Jordan Love getting involved a little bit, especially because, again, we don't know what's necessarily their comfort with A.J. Dillon. I think obviously the team still believes in him. I think they'll try to put him in better positions, but 1, this is not a defensive front to do that against. And 2, it's really hard to utilize your run game effectively when you've got so many rookies on the line or, inexperienced players. And we did talk about this too in the recap show. But once again, this offense isn't necessarily designed to be a run heavy team. It works because they've always been able to play complementary football, but these are pass blockers. Like the Packers love their big offensive linemen that can pass protect, and they can pass protect for hours. Like that is their bread and butter. When you ask them to move giant humans in the run game, they struggle a little bit. And I think that's part of the problem for A.J. Dillon is that he needs guys to create some space in a way that Aaron Jones can make his own space.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's such a good point. They're going to need to get the run game going here, though, because
they don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice. A, you need to play, complementary offense, and B, the best defense to an amazing pass rush is to get the ground game going. You can't rush the passer if he's not passing. So keeping things even and keeping Jordan Love protected, not just by pass blocking well, but also with a sound run game is going to be huge. And you just don't want to see another game where there's a super lopsided time of possession.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, your defense, you saw it. We talked about it. The defensive line played lights out the first couple drives, but when the second half came and the Falcons learned that they could just run it repeatedly with Bijan Robinson, what else were they going to do? And,
Yeah.
the Falcons had the ball for like 12 more minutes. And that's just not sustainable for your defense, especially when they're getting gashed in the ground. So long, methodical drives, sustained drives, and give the defense some rest. You're hoping the Lambeau crowd is really into it for the home opener and they can be
We
noisy
will
and
be.
and they can, give the defense some juice too. But yeah, the defense is going to need help because this is a good offense and we'll talk about it. But yeah,
Let's talk about the back end of the Saints defense before we flip, because they have some dudes in the secondary, namely Marshawn Lattimore, who has been at the top of the game for a very long time. Paulson Adebo, who you loved coming out of his draft, loved. The Honey Badger, who I think is probably kind of in his twilight years, if you will, but still a player that is incredibly smart and does not make a lot of mistakes. We did learn that their other starting safety, Marcus May, is suspended for 3 games. So Packers get a little bit of a break there, which is unfortunate because the Saints will not have him for 3 games. They also have their slot guy being Alontae Taylor, which I've been doing a little bit of reading and statistics on Alontae Taylor, and that seems to be their weak spot. And I think we talked a lot last week about mismatches and how the Packers can get some mismatches. And I think that's kind of where you should be targeting in this secondary. You want to get a Luke Musgrave in the slot, right? Or even a Jaden Reed, even though it's not a size mismatch, but potentially a speed mismatch out in the slot. And then everything changes if you have Christian Watson playing. I mean, everything opens up then. You get the field stretcher, you get the speed, and then potentially you do get a Christian Watson on Alontae Taylor, and that's not only a speed, but also a size mismatch. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for Matt LaFleur to just get some like easy mismatches and completions on this Saints defense and just allow Jordan Love to target the dudes that are open and not have to do, kind of one-on-ones against a Marshawn Lattimore or a Paulson Adebo, because they will make you pay if you put the ball at the wrong place.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say as well, is you have 3 interceptions already for this defense and 13 passes defensed. Like, they are around the ball, they're swatting at it, they get their hands on it. And Jordan Love hasn't thrown a pick yet, right? He almost did to AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell almost had one last week, but Love is still clean, and he's been pretty good at protecting the football. A lot of those kind of misreads were situations where the rookies were not on the same page with him, and the ball was kind of in a precarious spot, but he's done well protecting the football, and he's going to have to be really mindful of that again because, like you said, their back end is really talented.
Very. Any players you have your eye on this offense you think that can be like keys to this game?
I think honestly, it's like the Dontavian Wicks and the Malik Heaths. I think Christian Watson, if he plays, is going to take the top off again. It'll be really, just insane to see like him and Jaden Reed just both running go routes on the outside. Like, who do you protect at that point? Like, the speed on this offense is something that we just aren't used to, and LaFleur is going to have a lot of fun with it. But if they're dedicating, like safety help to guys like Christian Watson, then I think it's going to be the Dontavian Wicks and the guys that can get open and win their one-on-ones, which we saw them doing quite a bit against the Falcons and against the Bears. So I think it's just going to be another all-around effort from the young guys to really step up and make plays, win the balls in their hands.
Yes, absolutely. I think my guy is, I'm going to keep pounding the table until he gets like 10 targets a game, but like Luke Musgrave.
Yeah.
Luke Musgrave, Luke Musgrave, Luke Musgrave. Say that 3 times fast. Like more.
Like Beetlejuice,
more.
He'll just pop up in the offense.
More. Like he obviously has all the skills. And look,
You were so mad you hit your mic.
I did. I want more. He is like the ultimate mismatch. And you've seen glimpses of it. You've seen the tight end leak out to the right side in this last game against the Falcons. You've seen Jordan go to him deep. Are you going to need your tight ends a little bit to, you mentioned this at the top of the show, but like help a little bit on the left side of that line? Yes, but you have other tight ends to help block. I do not want to see Luke Musgrave out there just as a blocker. I want him out there as a pass catcher, and I want him getting 10 targets this game. So Matt, if you're listening, that's what I want.
Matt, if you follow us on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears then. Let's talk about the Packers defense against the Saints offense, because there's the Saints offense. I mean, obviously they have some new additions. Derek Carr is the quarterback now. But they're not putting up a ton of points. They've got explosive weapons. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas is looking like the Michael Thomas of old. So really dynamic wide receiver tandem, but only 25th in points per game so far. 18 points averaging, not putting up a ton of points in week 1 against the Titans, or only scoring 16, and then only putting up 20 against the Panthers in week 2. So weapons, but not necessarily a ton of utilization of those weapons yet.
Yeah, it's so weird because you look at this team on paper and you think like, okay, damn, like they have a really good team from like start to finish. Even like Juwan Johnson, really fun, and a pretty decent offensive line. But for some reason, right, the Saints offensive line is 26th in pass blocking efficiency and 28th in pass block win rate. So like they're not playing that well. You're able to get to Derek Carr very easily, and Carr is a high variance player, I would say. Carr can play really, really well and be lights out in a game, and Carr can be really erratic in a game. And you kind of never know what you're going to get. And I think the best way to get the erratic Derek Carr is to pressure him. And this team, this Packers defense, is made to pressure the quarterback. And I think they're going to have a lot of opportunities to do so against the Saints defensive line. But that's, in my head, like QB hits are great and pass rush win rate. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Is great, but it's not great if you don't get home. And my fear is this is the most experienced and veteran quarterback that this team has gone up against so far this season, right? This is not your Desmond Ridder. This is not your Justin Fields. Like Carr can take the pressure. He can hang in the pocket and fire a missile if you don't get to him. And you mentioned it, they have pass catchers who are really, really, really talented. So this is going to be a game where you are going to need to finish the play. None of this like, oh, I got close enough, but he got it out the last second and now they've just completed a third down. Not like, oh, I'm going to tackle with my shoulder. No, like you have to wrap up and finish the play. Whatever your assignment is, follow through to the end because there's a lot of talent on this side of the ball. And I think there's a lot of ways the Packers can win against them, but not if they aren't going all the way around 360, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, these are guys that should be really fired up after the way they played against Bijan Robinson. Like the fact that the Falcons all week were able to cut up slow-mos of, and okay, there's some athletes that are just superhuman and they're going to get theirs, right?
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, one of those guys. But, you know, if you are missing tackles for another team's highlight reel that they're just playing over and over and over again, like that's got to make you mad, right? Like wrap up.
Yeah. I mean, I think you put Bijan in that category, but yes, right. I agree.
Like I would be mad if I just was falling on my face the entire week in highlight clips. But you're right. I mean, this is a Packers defense that is tied for first in the league in pressure. 61 pressures in 2 weeks is just insane. So they do have an opportunity to get after Derek Carr because he's not as mobile as a Justin Fields or a Desmond Ridder. He's got a strong arm. You know, he's going to take his shots, obviously. Chris Olave and Michael Thomas both are over 100 yards receiving already on the season. Their run game, I think, is maybe where the Packers will tighten up a little bit this week. Well, they gave up 211 yards this week, right? Like they have to tighten up at some point. But Jamal Williams probably not playing this week. He's out with an injury. But then they have Kendre Miller and Kirk Merritt as their second team and third team running backs. So
yeah, no, their run defense is definitely, their run game is not what this defense had to deal with last week, which is a good thing. But their pass game is, right? And so it's going to be a big game for the corners. I think just contain whoever they have in the backfield to minimal yardage, get this team in kind of second and third and long situations, and then let your corners do what your corners are really good at, like elite at. I think Jair is going to want to have a bounce back game as well. I am particularly curious how they're going to situate our cornerbacks in this game. Are you going to have Ja on Michael Thomas? Are you going to have Ja on the youngin' Chris Olave? Is Rasul going to be on which one? I think that's going to be really fun. That's definitely one that I'm watching. I know when the Saints came up to training camp last offseason, Ja and Michael Thomas were just like jawing at each other all practice. It was really fun to watch. So maybe there's a little bit of competition there, definitely closer in age. Michael Thomas looks like himself again, which I think should be really scary. I know that he's been a little bit of a laughingstock and he hasn't exactly been, a barn burner in recent years because he struggled with injuries, but we forget like Michael Thomas of old was, offensive player of the year category worthy. This is a guy who has played a lot of football at a really high level, and you do not want to make any mistakes against him. And I think they also have some really fun backups who they can rotate in. I will say they're still doing this like Taysom Hill shtick. I don't get it. I thought we would just kind of
moved on from that.
Yeah, I thought we would retire this after Drew Brees left. We have not. Quite frankly, if Dennis Allen wants to do the Taysom Hill thing, fine. I'm cool with him taking the ball out of Derek Carr's hands. I'm cool with doing some weird tight end QB draws, whatever Taysom Hill is. I don't know. If you want to do it, do it. I know he's questionable and he's a little bit injured, but do your thing with Taysom Hill. But I just don't want a situation where the Packers defense gets caught off guard because Taysom Hill is in the game and then all of a sudden he's running all over them.
I did forget because the Saints haven't updated their depth chart yet, but they also have Tony Jones Jr. that they signed again, and he leads the team actually in touchdowns. He's probably going to be their starting running back going into this game. He has 2 rushing touchdowns already this season. And what's really weird, if you kind of look at the Saints numbers, we talked about how good their defense is. Their defense has only given up 1 passing touchdown all season. Their offense has only scored 1 passing touchdown all season. So it really, you talked about this game having a lot of really kind of interesting quirks. And I think that's for sure one of them. They're putting up a ton of yards, but they're not necessarily capitalizing in the end zone, which should be a good sign for the Packers, right? They have a good defense and they need to be able to capitalize on that and force Derek Carr into making some mistakes.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the Packers have done, I don't know the stats on this if you have this in front of you, but just from the eye test from me watching, the Packers have done a decent job kind of tightening up in the red zone and not allowing getting stops, getting 4th down stops, forcing field goals, etc. So I think that's a good thing when you're also going up against a team who is also struggling to get into the end zone. This should be a place where the Packers win. Yeah, I'd prefer it if they just forced punts though.
Yeah, so they're 9th in the league on 3rd down conversions and 9th in red zone defense as well. 7 trips, 3 touchdowns. So they are shoring up when they need to. It's just, a matter of making sure that run defense is solid. This is probably the weakest backfield that they've seen so far through 3 games, but that doesn't give you a pass, right? You still need to wrap up. And I don't know. We talked about this pre-show, so I'm curious your thoughts on this. You said you think this is just absolutely a winnable game for the Packers. Is there anything that is concerning to you, aside from what we've talked about already, where you would give the nod to the Saints?
Yeah, I think if you get Derek Carr on one of his best days and he's just firing off passes to their very good pass catchers, and we're doing our Joe Barry thing where we play off and we play zone and they're allowing I'm thinking about the Titans game from last year.
Yeah.
That kind of defense where the Titans didn't even have as good of talent in the past game as the Saints do. And so for some reason you have Ryan Tannehill going for 8 yards, 12 yards, 6 yards in these short yardage passes and just dinking and dunking them down the field. That's my concern because I think that's very possible. But I can't see these Packers cornerbacks after having a game that they did against the Falcons, allowing that. I think I'd like to see a tighter, more man-to-man.
Yeah. And I think that's, my concern here is it's not that I don't think this is a winnable game, because I absolutely do. I think that if the Packers play their brand of football, they're the better football team. The concern here is we talked about this team being a team that can either be 10-7 or 7-10, depending on tightening up and the way the ball bounces and all of those football cliches. You can't afford to get onto a skid. You have a really short week. So this game, as much as nobody ever plays to get injured, but you have to just play a really clean brand of football, get out of this one, try not to exhaust your team, and then turn around and play Thursday night against the Lions. And then, of course, they have a long stretch, but you just can't afford to get on a losing skid, I think, because the team was so high week 1. Week 2 was one of those games that the whole team was frustrated by because they knew that they could win it and gave it away. So you need to kind of ride that momentum back up, because this still is a playoff caliber football team, and it's a really young team. And I go back to Jaden Reed's quote, right, about we have to let it build us, not break us. And that's exactly it. But it starts with the momentum of getting a game in front of your home crowd and winning and changing the trajectory, because I just don't think that, I don't want to call it an adversity piece, but I think that you just, with a young team, you don't want to let yourself start to skid.
Yeah,
So
I
that would
agree
be
with
my
you.
concern.
I think there's something about this being at Lambeau that is why I feel like this is a game that they're going to come out on top, and we'll do game predictions, now that we're wrapping up. But I just can't see the Packers dropping to the Saints at home. I think if this game was in New Orleans, I would actually give the nod to New Orleans. I
Or
think
in
they're
Florida.
or in Florida, yeah, or anywhere not at Lambeau. I would say, I think the Saints could really eke this one out, simply just because the Saints, contrary to the Packers, have a very vet-heavy team. They've played a lot of football together, even though Derek Carr is new. They've all played a lot of football, and they know how to win games. And that's something that this Packers team is still learning how to do, right? But I think just the simple juice of being at home for the first time this season, and it being Jordan Love's first career start at home, and just all the things about being at Lambeau, and just that good Lambeau juju. I think they have to win. They have to.
And I think that's what's so frustrating about this, and week 2, and not to keep rehashing it, but you expected all of this from your offense. Your offense is young, and they're still second in the league in points right now. They're doing their job. They're holding up their end of the bargain. The defense is where you have all the vets and the money and all of the investments. So now they need to hold up their end of the bargain, because their young quarterback and their young offense, they're putting up points. They're doing what they need to do. So now the defense really needs to own up to their half. And everybody can have a down game, understandably, but the defense is where this team is supposed to have all of its strengths. So they need to prove that now on Sunday.
Yeah, I think this is a good bounce back game. I think they're going to bring the juice, and I'm excited for it. I do think it's going to be low scoring, just given what the Saints have been able to, or have stopped teams from being able to put up. I don't know where you fall on this, but I see this being a 20-17 Packers.
That was exactly going to be my prediction. Yep, 2017.
Yeah. I'd be happy if there was more. I'd love 5 touchdowns, but
all in our end zone too.
All in our end zone, yes.
Yep.
But I won't be greedy. I'll take a win.
Yep. All the touchdowns can be on the other side of the field if we just get the win at Lambeau. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up, other than see you in a couple days?
I cannot wait. I fly out in 48 hours, basically. I'm so excited. I haven't been back to Wisconsin in almost a year. I miss it. Yes, this New Yorker loves New York, but also misses Wisconsin with all her heart. Might have, I guess I'll tease this a little bit, might have a little surprise cooked up with some other Packers content creators that you all know and love on Saturday in Green Bay. So stay tuned for some kind of announcement. I won't be the one to do it. I'll let the human who is, actually leading the charge on that announce it. But I will be in Green Bay Saturday night. So if you are looking to have a drink, you can probably catch me at the bar at Hinterland, drinking as many cherry wheats as my tiny little body can handle. And I cannot wait. I just can't wait to see you. I can't wait to be at Lambeau. And I am so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. The home opener is the best atmosphere at Lambeau. I love snowy games. I love cold weather games, but there is nothing and preseason is great, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing like the home opener at Lambeau with 70,000 of your friends, full stadium, just seeing all the green and gold. If you see us, walk into the stadium, say, hey, we love that. We would love to say hi. And just, that's all we got. We'll catch you on Monday with a Packers Saints recap, hopefully talking about the great game that we got to witness live. You can find the podcast on Twitter at PWSS Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and all of our other socials at Pax What She Said. You can find Perri on Twitter at Perri_Goldstein. You can find me on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. Please, if you listen to the show through audio, make sure you're downloading each episode. That really helps us out. You can find us everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And of course, you can find us on YouTube as well. Thank you. And go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.